Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another Pulse of Israel episode. This is not a war update. I'm actually at Turning Point's AmFest here in Phoenix, Arizona. And standing with me is Emma Barefoot. You cannot forget that last name. From which university in Florida?
Rollins College.
From Rollins College. And anyone not familiar with Turning Point, it's an organization that reaches out to the college students to empower them, and correct me if I'm wrong, to empower them to be proud conservatives and deal with the growing progressivism, especially on college campuses. So we're going to be talking to Emma about the anti-Semitism that she is experiencing in her college campus. But before that, let's just touch upon being here at Turning Point AmFest. Why are you here, Emma?
I'm actually here because of the anti-Semitism that I experienced on my college campus. I ended up getting super active on campus with our administration and our president due to some of the things that were put out there regarding the conflict in Israel right now, and it got me super fired up politically and realizing just how uneducated the youth is in this country. So I'm here to meet like-minded individuals to find out how I can make a better change and better educate the youth as well.
You mean if October 7th would not have happened, you wouldn't necessarily be here right now at Turning Point?
Probably not.
So how'd you make that connection between of what you personally experienced, and we'll get into that in a second because that's very important for people to hear, and wanting to come here specifically?
I realized that the level of uneducation as far as the Israel and Hamas conflict has been happening, just how many people are uneducated on the actual facts, and so many people are just spewing this hatred towards Jewish people, which my family is Jewish, so it really hit home for me, and I have lots of friends that have family in Israel right now. So it really was something that I was turned on to. I always knew that tons of our youth are uneducated as far as politics go, but I didn't realize that anti-Semitism was a line people would cross. I thought that after the Holocaust, people knew that that was a no-go zone, that they've been through enough, and as Jews, and so I was appalled, and I realized that a stand needs to be taken not only for Jewish people, but for the whole entire community, and the whole country, the whole world.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've been talking about this for years. I've actually been talking about the rise of anti-Semitism, let's say for 30 years, but very much so ever since the Obama administration, because I saw the direct support and financial support and organizational support that the Obama administration and President Obama at the time himself was giving towards the Muslim Brotherhood organizations, CARE, campus organizations, which I already was calling people out saying, guys, anti-Semitism is growing, but no one wanted to pay attention to that. But it's interesting you bring up the Holocaust, thinking that, oh, you thought it was all gone, no more anti-Semitism, because I've been explaining to people for years, and in all my talks, we were blessed, and even me and my parents' generation even more than you, but you came at the tail end of it, to live most of our lives in what I call the post-Holocaust bubble. Meaning it's a bubble of civilization that goes against the norm of civilization, which is very sad when you think about it, because the norm of civilization is there is always anti-Semitism. Throughout history, since time immemorial, Jews have always been hated. Why? That's just part of the DNA of humanity. But we were brought up in years where I call it the post-Holocaust bubble, because the non-Jewish world were so shocked at how vicious the Nazis were that all of a sudden anti-Semitism became taboo. So that's why all of a sudden, like, no, you don't want to be labeled an anti-Semite, and you ran away from like the plague. But that bubble is over. Now people have no problem be outing themselves as total anti-Semites. No embarrassment whatsoever. That taboo is gone, and people would like to think, oh, this is the abnormal, but unfortunately it's not. This is going back to normal, where anti-Semitism is there, and we have to learn how to deal with it, as opposed to thinking it's going to go away again. But why don't you tell people what you experienced personally on your campus that woke you up to this.
So I already go to a very liberal university. They've spoken out for BLM and other issues that are very left-wing. I've experienced it. I'm a senior, so I've experienced it for over 3 years now, and it's absolutely disgusting to watch, but about a week and a half, I want to say almost 2 weeks after October 7th, we saw an email from our president of our university, and it came out. It did not condemn Hamas. It did not condemn anti-Semitism. It was the most pacified, just complacent email I've ever read in my life, and immediately the Jewish community at Rollins was in an uproar. It was really quite disgusting, and so my friend and I, who is Israeli, we drafted an email together, basically condemning our administration and the president himself, and calling him to action. And we ended up being called into his office. We were ambushed by about 4 other administrators we didn't know would be there as 21-year-olds. We had to sit there with middle-aged people who have PhDs and degrees and sit there and explain ourselves. And I actually had the chance to call the president a hypocrite myself, because he basically sat there and told me that he didn't want to be political as a president or as an organization. And I told him, Mr. President, that is incredibly hypocritical, because you have supported BLM, you have supported all other left-wing ideologies within this campus in my last 3 years, and I think that's quite hypocritical. And he chose to say that he didn't think it was hypocritical. He has learned, is what he said, and that issues like George Floyd and BLM, those were black and white, but the Israel and Hamas conflict are not, which I think is one of the most appalling things I've ever heard regarding this. It is the most black and white issue that I have ever seen in my lifetime. I don't see where we got lost in this country on terrorism not being something we can all stand together on. That used to be something all parties could agree on. 9/11, everybody came together, everybody banded together. With the Holocaust, everybody banded together. But in this new era, it's disgusting. And I think back to what you were saying about the Jews have always been hated, and I've been talking about this extensively with a lot of my friends, is victimhood has become such a big thing in this world and in this country, and Jews after the Holocaust chose not to become victims of what they experienced.
We've always...
They're some of the most successful people in this world,
right.
And that's why the left can't stand them, and that's why they have this hatred for them, is because they're not choosing to be victims like the rest of the left is, and like the BLM movement has. They're not supporting the victimhood mentality that the left maintains, so therefore they're attacking them through this awful time.
Right, because the truth is, I always tell this, we do not play the Victim Olympics. If we would play the Victim Olympics, we would win not the gold, we would earn triple platinum because of how much we've been persecuted for 4,000 years. But we don't play that. We decide to thrive despite the hatred and persecutions that we go through, and just move forward. I think it was I don't know if you've seen the latest Bill Maher video. He just a few days ago, he made a video dealing with the situation, and he made this exact point, basically saying that Jews have been persecuted forever, but they're not crying. But yet the Palestinians are crying. You could have had a Singapore. You could have had an unbelievable country if you would have used all the international funding and developed Gaza. But you didn't do that. Instead, you decided to kill Jews, and now you're crying because you're getting hit back for what you. Anyway, he put it very, very well for a Bill Maher video. But yeah, that's our reality. That we do not focus on our victimhood. But. So what ended up happening with the administration after that meeting?
So after the meeting, basically the solutions to the email, we were told they would not release a correction email. They would not condemn Hamas in another email publicly to the university. Rather, they would look at possibly instituting a course within our university on the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and learning history about both countries, which obviously is going to be very left-leaning and is not going to be accurate in teaching the students, because I've had multiple courses within that school that have been left-leaning, and I've had to choose what I learn from those classes because they're not accurate. And they told us that probably wouldn't even go into effect soon because it's too heated at the moment.
It's too heated to defend the massacre, mutilation, burning of Jewish children, women, grandmothers.
Yes. So it's really disgusting, and I think that they have a lot to learn at that university. We gave them examples of University of Florida and University of Central Florida. Their presidents released great emails condemning Hamas, which is an entirely American thing to do. I don't think it's political at all, and they were shown those, so hopefully they choose to learn from it. I personally think it's time for that president to resign, but clearly presidents are not resigning after saying horrific things at the moment.
Even the Harvard president, if I'm not mistaken, resigned, or maybe one of the other universities, Penn, resigned, yes. But she's still on staff. So she's not the president, but she's still there to spew her obvious bigotry and anti-Semitism. So I have this question for you, or I'm giving you ammunition to use, all right? Have you ever read the United Nations Partition Plan from 1947?
I have not.
I'm going to ask you a trick question, okay. but throw me an answer. Do you know how many times the word Palestine or Palestinians are mentioned in the United Nations Partition Plan of 1947, when which basically was the two-state solution? How many times? Guess.
0.
And she says that because I said it was a trick question. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's the answer. Exactly. And that's something you should use anyone who starts talking to you about the two states and the history of the two states. Because what do you learn from that? If there actually was the existence of a people called Palestinians, it would have been written in that document. Mm-hmm. If there was the possibility of establishing a state called Palestine based on, for the two-state solution based on that document, it would have been in that document. But it wasn't. Do you know what word is used when talking about the two states? A Jewish state and an Arab state. Mm-hmm. Because they were Arabs. They weren't known as Palestinians. Mm-hmm. What I like to, when the information I give over to people in my programs and teach over, and this is the information I want to be able to give over to the collegiates and the high school kids, is understanding that, believe it or not, the whole cause called Palestine is the biggest historical blood libel ever on a global scale. Because think about it like this. Let's say they had a claim. So they're anti-Israel, right? Why should you... Have you ever been to Israel?
I haven't. I was going to go on Birthright. And
all right, so she's going to come. She hasn't been there yet. But okay, so you haven't been to Israel. You're not involved in Israeli politics. You don't live there. Why should you suffer anti-Semitism from people who have a claim against the Jewish state of Israel? Does that make any sense?
No, not at all.
Right. So why is it? It's because it's anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. Meaning
it's the whole world. It's not just the conflict.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is something that what I feel sad that not enough Jewish students understand. So when all these Jewish students are being attacked on college campus, the first thing they do is they're apologetic. No, I support the two-state solution. Am I wrong? Right? Like, no, don't be upset at me. I'm good. I support the two-state solution. Because they don't understand, they're not hated because they're against the two-state solution. They're hated because they're associated as being Jewish or a supporter of the Jewish state of Israel. That's why we hate you. Has nothing to do with Israel. Has nothing to do with the politics of Israel. It has to do that the whole cause called Palestine is itself anti-Semitic to its core, which gives legitimacy, even by university presidents, for Jews or or Israel supporters to be attacked because it's politics.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So how many students do you think could be more empowered if they actually knew this information? Obviously much more of the background here.
I mean, I think if you look at any of the videos of people going to college campuses and speaking to young people, and you see them calling them out, what river? What sea? What do you, like, tell me all of the facts that are giving you that's cannon fodder to hate the Jews, to call for genocide of the Jews, and they have no education whatsoever. And even if they do have these facts that they're spewing, they're not correct. So I think that every single person that is spewing this, that is not a terrorist and is not a part of Hamas and indoctrinated into that, is just simply uneducated, and as soon as they would be educated, there would be no issue.
So permit me for being a devil's advocate here, and I'm going to say some people would be skewed. Some people would be skewed, but others, their anti-Semitism is so great that the facts won't matter. But this is my tip, and I'll tell you this little story. I was on Berkeley University 12, 13 years ago during anti-Israel apartheid week. Have you ever experienced anti-Israel apartheid week on a college campus? Oh boy. So you have all the anti-Israel activists doing street theater. They built like an apartheid wall, and then they're dressed up like Israeli soldiers with fake guns, and then they're pushing people to the ground, pulling their hair, pointing a gun at them, right? And like trying to influence all the students walking by them, showing them how evil Israel and the Jews are, right? That's what this street theater is about. That's what they use anti-Israel apartheid weeks about. So the Hillel students, they were all there with signs that basically said Israel supports a two-state solution, Israel wants peace, Israel created the cherry tomato, meaning all these things. And I went up to the students, I said, listen guys, good for your efforts, but you're fighting a different battle. You're not fighting the same battle. They're talking about justice, and you're trying to say, oh, we're okay. They're not talking about whether you're okay. They're saying you have no right to exist. So figure out how to fight that battle. So I said, listen, write me a sign, and then I'm going to carry it into the street theater. And I had them write, I'm an IDF soldier, ask me anything. And then I picked up this sign and I walked in the middle of their street theater, in the middle of their apartheid wall, insanity, delegitimization of the Jews and the Jewish state. And everyone started asking me questions, not the protesters. And I taught the kids after that, I said, listen, you have to understand this. Your target audience are not the protesters. Your target audience are the bystanders walking by, so that they are convinced not to trust the lies and misinformation of the anti-Semitic protesters. And that's the most important information that I give over to you and everyone else also. Like, don't even engage, never engage the protesters, but be there to help the innocent students walking by understand, like, no, they don't know what they're talking about, just move on.
It's also their fight too, and I think that was something we've spoken about, is that I'm Christian by faith, and I have so much love for the Jewish community, but in reality, other than my family ties, I have no reason to be fighting this fight other than realizing that they come for the Jews first. This country, the U.S., is built on Judeo-Christian values, hand in hand, the Jews and the Christians. We are allies, and we need to act as such. And the people walking around this country, especially the conservatives who want to say they stand up for things like this that aren't, and they're standing by, I think is worse than the people out protesting against Israel. The people that are being complacent are the issue.
It's not even her fight. And she's fighting it because she gets it, because she understands that ultimately it is your fight. So first of all, Emma, thank you so much for getting it, and not just getting it, but being active in being part of the solution to help save not just the Jewish people, the freedom-loving world, but also America. So I'm here to help, but all the best. May God bless you on all of your efforts and activating all the rest of your student body as well, and standing up for your campus and other campuses.
Thank you. Thank you for being a voice of education for my generation. We need it.
My pleasure. And when you do come to Israel, we'll meet up. You'll let me know. All right?
Great.
We'll meet up in Jerusalem.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Avi.
You got it. All right, everybody. Emma Barefoot. Where can people look you up?
Emma_Barefoot on Instagram.
There you go. All right, everyone, enjoy. There you go. Turning Point USA, all behind you. This is the sponsors quarter, one of the most quiet areas, hence we did the interview here. But thanks for watching. If you are not yet a subscriber to Pulse of Israel, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. If you are a subscriber and you want to help us get these videos seen by more people, just click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.